Hello and welcome to The Print. I am Triya Gulati, and joining me today is writer director Ravi Muppa, who is set to make his directorial debut with a short film Incognito. Incognito is set to release tomorrow on O Flip Shorts, which is a new YouTube channel by Anurag Kashyap, which will be dedicated to short films. And Incognito, if I'm right, is the first film. Ravi, am I right? Welcome to The Print.
Hi, Tia. Thank you for doing this. Yes, Incognito would be the first shot to launch the channel, and I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. So, Ravi, for when I read about it, my first question was like that popped up in my head that why did you choose a YouTube platform instead of taking the OTT route or a theatrical release?
Um, we've had some offers before, but I always felt that YouTube was the best platform for this, just because of the sheer size of the audience, um, and, uh, and any other OTT platform, even if um, no OTT platform actually compares to the size of YouTube's audience. I felt like that's a good as it gets, and having someone, but doesn't make sense when you have a short launched just dropped on it because nobody will know about it. So having this channel, which is created by Ranjan Singh, curated by Anurag, I think it was really something that convinced me that this is probably the best deal.
Right. You Anurag Kashyap and both Anurag Kashyap and Vikramaditya Motwane are backing your short film. I want to know from you what was their first that raw reaction when they watched your film.
I was not in the room with them, but I also think that they watched at different points of time. Anurag had seen this film a couple of years ago when I was trying to sign it to festivals, and I think the response came very quickly overnight. He sent me a message and through Ranjan, and yeah, we started talking, and I told him about my plans to turn it into a feature. And he was very excited about that. And yeah, we've gone through a long journey in the development of the feature film based on the short for the last 2 years almost, along with two of our other producers who are based in the US. Um, Vikram had sent a wonderful message as well, telling me how he felt the performances and the atmosphere was terrific, and I'm so glad that both of them came on board. Yeah.
Right. Just hearing the plot of the film, it definitely is very intriguing. In fact, I'm looking forward to watching it tomorrow. I want to understand first from you that how did you develop this script that's such a unique idea, like through the lens of a receptionist, right? So, like, tell me, how did you develop this idea? How long did it take you to, shoot the whole process? Shoot the whole project? When was it ready? And then how did you go about marketing your film at film festivals?
Um, so I started. It all started with, I think, a news article that I'd read about a flight attendant who rescued a young girl from being trafficked while mid uh, uh, while they were in the flight, and I just felt like it seemed like such an interesting cinematic chamber piece where you're not allowed to talk to the person that you're trying to save, and you're still trying to rescue them without anyone noticing. Um, I was very intrigued by that news, but I didn't know what to make of it. Um, some years later, I think I started reading spate of news about how there's like hidden cameras being discovered in shopping malls and hostel rooms and all kinds of private spaces. That it was quite disturbing, and I felt like in order to tell a story that is authentic to what's going on here, I felt that I needed a protagonist who was from this world, and I think those two ideas kind of came together, and I just felt like this is the perfect way to tell the story. And the second part of your question, we made it. I mean, it was a 2-day shoot, but there was 2 month prep, and I fundraised through friends and family. I wanted it to be uh, set up in such a way that creative control completely rested with me. Um, and I mean, if it was going to fail, I would have taken it, but I just wanted to fail on my own terms. Luckily, it didn't, and started sending it to festivals after that, and didn't get great response initially. But I think once one of the Oscar qualified festivals picked it up, I think things looked up after that, and went to Tirana in Albania. I traveled with the film, and that was an Oscar qualifying festival, and from there on went to Palm Springs and LA Shots, and then Oscar qualification. We did a small campaign for that, and I met a lot of interesting people, a lot of collaborators for the feature based on that. Nikki Weinstock, who's one of the executive producers, and Divya D'Souza, both of them I'd met them in LA whilst campaigning for the film.
Mhm.
And of course, Anurag and Ranjan came on board as well. So that's been the journey so far.
You said it just took you 2 days to shoot this film,
Correct. Yeah. I
and
think
a month,
most
and a
short
month
films,
after.
2 months maybe,
Okay.
because I think finding the right collaborators, I was in an interesting phase where I had one foot in the industry because I worked on productions uh, which were primarily mainstream, but I needed people who didn't necessarily come from just that kind of pedigree. So I roped in people that I had worked with before. My film school buddy came in as a cinematographer. So it was a mix. It was a mixed crew, and it took some time to assemble the right crew. And likewise with the casting as well. Casting was very difficult, in fact, actually, because when I floated out the script to a lot of casting agents, not many were keen on taking it on. Mainly because of the subject matter. I think they were a little confused about the
Mhm.
tone of the film. Some assumed it was porn, and I was a little taken aback, and I found it really hard. And until Casting Bay came along and kind of had a really good selection of actors to pick from, and
Mhm.
it just came together very quickly. But in a way, it also took a very long time to write it, and because but I'd always conceived it as a feature film, and the short was a proof of concept of that. So uh, just just writing the feature took a long time, and
Mhm.
the short, I thought it was going to be easy, but it's not. It's its own beast, a different structure altogether. So the writing of the short also took longer than I'd expected. Um,
Right. You spoke about how the challenges you face with the casting directors, and considering that you have worked on these big budget projects, and then having a journey with your own baby, and going through the highs and lows, how would you see, like, in today's time when you have like OTT there? It's not just theater, right? You have OTT, you have YouTube, and you have many other platforms as well, where you can put out your scripts, your films. How difficult or easy is it today for an independent filmmaker to narrate a story that he truly believes in?
um, I think everyone has their own journey, and I feel that it's hard to say. It depends. I mean, I've been lucky in many situations, but I've also had to wait a long time in certain
No,
scenarios.
I
So
do agree when you say that everyone has its own journey, but what I want to understand is, how is the ecosystem like for short filmmakers, people who are, like, just who are just making their debut, or it's like their first or second film?
okay, okay. When it comes to short films, I would say I think there is no ecosystem. um, there are very few grants, if anything. I think some of them are coming up now, and most of them are issue driven. Let's say if you're making a film about the environment or the climate change and all of that, then you can get a grant. But unlike, let's say, Europe, I don't think you have. systems in place to make short films. You don't have sales agents who specialize in short films. So it's all an experiment really, and it's a leap of faith, and there is no other way, but also there is no better way to get started as a filmmaker, as a writer director, especially, I'd say.
So, where do you think, Anurag Kashyap starting this YouTube channel where he said, where they have announced, both the co-founders have announced that every month they are going to put out one short film. Where do you think, how significant is this initiative for filmmakers like you?
I think it's incredibly important to have something. It's of course it's the start of something, and I think they have all the right ingredients for it. Um, because, like I said, any short film or any video that you put on YouTube or other OTT platforms can get lost. There's just too much, right? So somebody needs to, some tastemaker needs to, some curator needs to sort of like say that these are worth watching for these reasons. And it may not be to everyone's taste, but I think but promising that we are going to be showing films of all types, and we are building a community around it. I think as best a start as one could hope for.
A lot of people also have this notion that short films tend to be more preachy. What do
So do
you have to?
I think so do feature films, and it's at least short films get in and get out within 15-20 minutes. Feature films, you're stuck there in a theater for 1.5 or 2 hours. Um, I think yeah, I think short especially, I feel that there's not enough time, so it's really hard to provide answers to anything. But if you can pick the curiosity of somebody about a certain topic or certain feeling, really, I think you've probably done your job very well. If you've asked the right questions at the end of it, I think that's job well done, in my opinion.
Now Incognito is also going to be, is like it's under in process of being, translated into a feature film. What is the difference, as a filmmaker, you have this baby now, and then you have to create another baby which is, identical to it, but you cannot like miss on the core ethos of your film, the core messaging of the film. So how challenging was it to go about this feature film, and how different or similar is it, is the feature film to the short film?
Um, yeah, I would say the feature is the mother and the short was the baby.
But the
Because
baby happened first.
Yeah, the baby happened first because the mother was in the background. I had written a feature script, and I realized that I wanted to write and direct it. I had a certain way of telling that story, and there was no other way to show it until I made a short film out of it. Kind of give people a sense of what I would do with this. Um, but having said that, I the reaction of the audiences across the world, wherever it had screened, I was lucky enough to go and sit in those theaters. I learned so much from their reactions, and what the things that they said after the screenings kind of informed how I needed to rewrite the feature. And if I look at the feature that I have now versus the feature I had come up with initially, it's radically different. Um, but somewhere the core of the story, the core of the character remains the same.
Mhm.
um, and it underwent so much transformation, including the setting. So the feature is going to be set in the US. It is going to feel like an American film with an Indian protagonist. um, it feels like a huge shift, but at the same time, in my mind, it doesn't feel like a huge shift in terms of the narrative and the story, the characters. It's gonna have the same elements of like having that sort of like relentless pressure being applied. um, Stakes are gonna keep going up throughout the film. It's gonna feel like it'll be a thriller, out and out. And but some of the themes that we get to explore in a feature would be a lot more deeper than the ones I was able to in the show.
If I may ask, why did you feel the need to shift the, the setup from India to US for your feature film?
Actually, the feature was always meant to be set in the US because it was also because I started with the character as well. You know, the main character um, uh, was some without revealing too much. I'd say a sort of an underdog, and the circumstances that he finds himself in the US kind of lent very well to how audience could have empathy for him before
Mhm.
jumping on this journey with him, where there is a lot of judgment attached to a person like that. So I kind of really needed to find someone to kind of have that empathy with, and that's one reason. That the other one is that in my mind, I had always imagined it being set in a motel, and hotels in the US are of they take on this like beautiful cinematic quality, the neon lights and the nightscapes. It's something that is perfect for this film. Um, and the shot, I had tried to make it in the US initially, but there were too many constraints at the time, and I just felt like I just need to make the story come alive, and it doesn't matter, it could be set anywhere, but now that I've written the script, I think it has become so specific that I can't imagine placing it anywhere but that particular place in the US, you know.
Right. You said that your script was originally a feature film, and in order to first tell this story to everyone, to draw that attention, you made a short film. I think this approach sort of, do you think this approach sort of can help a lot of filmmakers who don't get that kind of backing, who, spend years just, asking producers to back their idea? Do you think it is a good way to first have a short film to give an, like a sneak peek into the actual world that you have created, the actual script that you have created?
Absolutely. I think I'm actually surprised that not many people in India have done this. It's not so new. I mean, there's been so many instances in the US and abroad and elsewhere as well, where filmmakers have taken a short film to kind of showcase. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a scene from the film. It can just be film to kind of showcase the tone of the feature, or maybe sometimes you just want to establish one character or just one backstory of the feature. But it's such a great way, especially for producers, to see what a first-time filmmaker can bring to the table. Because there's always this doubt that, okay, you've written the script, because writing the script and directing these are like two different, completely different muscles. And yes, there are writer directors who do both, but you have to compartmentalize it. And making a shot it's a great way to convince producers, investors, distributors, sales agents, and kind of even at the core, I think you just a way to test this idea with the audiences. You know, in the tech world, they call it a MVP, right? A minimum viable product.
Viable
Um,
product.
you, yeah, so you could think of a proof of concept shot, as something similar. You know, not every proof of concept has to go to a festival and win awards and all of that. It could just be something that that you've made so that you understand the story better, you understand the characters better, and then you put it out to the audience, who will tell you so much more about what this film is to them, and that gives you so many ideas, and you can rewrite your feature. I'm I'm fully supportive of this model, and in fact, I am looking at a couple of my next features in a similar fashion, because I've learned so much through the shot that I would be uh, I would be missing out on that if I didn't do that again.
Ravi, I have this question which I think has been with me for quite a couple of months, because you see so many short films, you speak to so many filmmakers, and I think with every conversation I had, with every short film I watched, I think, and or even feature film I watched, that sort of kept on piling, and I could never really ask it. But I'll take this opportunity to ask you: do you think that the Indian entertainment ecosystem doesn't know how to treat short films the way it should be, as compared to um, like Hollywood or Japan or wherever?
Um, Interesting, very interesting question. I would say uh, I don't think US is the best role model in that sense. I would say Europe has a lot more structures in place. Um, Not sure about Asia as much, but I think what we are missing out really is, in my opinion, again,
Mhm.
is the way you can identify talent when somebody goes through something where they have to actually have made something and shown it to people and endured the process of, whether it could be applause or it could be humiliation or whatever at the end of it, and having come out of that process, and still wanting to make that project into a feature or a show or a series or whatever. I think it's invaluable, and I think and Ranjan has identified that, very smartly, and uh, you can find really great filmmakers because you can have really good scripts. I'm a writer. I mean, I'm a writer first, and I still believe that, it's really half the job, writing the script, and a lot of people come up through, especially in India, for many years now, have come up through being assistant directors, and you understand a lot of different things about how to run a set, how to talk to actors, and how to organize your shoot, a lot of these practical things. But your true voice as a filmmaker can only come through when you actually make that first film. Now, having said that, I wouldn't necessarily say a short is the only way. I'm just saying that you need to make a sort of a rough draft of a film for your own career. It could be a short film, it could be a documentary, it could be a very low budget feature. Doesn't matter. But you need to make that on your own terms, because I don't think you'll get the kind of freedom you get for your first film, post that film. And shorts are just a more economical way to do it, a faster way to do it, and would be nice to have more discerning audience who know how to find these films and who know how to treat them. A lot of the times there is a mismatch of expectation. You tune in and you're almost like gearing up for a 2-hour film or a 60-minute episode, and shots are maximum 20-25 minutes long. I mean, 25 is
Yeah.
very long. Mine is very long. Hopefully it doesn't feel long when you're watching it, but that's the mismatch in expectation, and it can only happen if you but having said that, in the last few years, I think there's been so much short form content. There is
Yeah.
also the problem of confusing that with narrative short films, which are very,
Yeah.
very clearly designed and structured, and it has a certain way of experience design attached to it, which
Right.
filming a skit or a which is its own thing. It's an impromptu thing. They do very different things, I guess, for the audience is what I'm trying to say.
In fact, my last question was on the audiences, right? You can create the best short film, and if people don't watch it, what would be the point of it? Like your industry experts can, like, applaud it, but in the end, you need audiences. In the last couple of years, do you think that there has been a significant, if not a significant, but to some extent, there has been a change because Indian audience is so particular about, because the world is their oyster, they are consuming content from across the world, so they are rejecting more as compared to what they are accepting. Do you think that in this transition, in this improved appetite of cinema that people think that India now has, do you think that short films or feature films can cater to that because they are much more nuanced, they have a lot more depth than a masala film?
Um, Again, depending on which audience are we talking about, because on YouTube we would find as broad an audience as possible. It's probably going to be the harshest place in a way to find audience, because it's just too many. Um, but I would say that a short film or an independent feature film, especially if it looks the part, by which I mean it doesn't feel like the production values are not up to the standard, because there are mainstream audiences who will tune out just by looking at the lighting of the film, and or just by realizing that there's too many silences. So people get very uncomfortable with that. This is just a quirk with the audience, that because you're used to a certain form of cinema, that this feels very different. But at least, like I said, a short is quite short, and the time commitment is much lesser compared to a feature. So I would say, if
Mhm.
you were going to experiment and train the audience, and also like let the filmmakers experiment on their craft and voice, is a great way to do that. Even more than a low budget feature. It's a bit more of a risk when you ask people to commit a longer period of time watching that. But
Hmm.
having said that, a feature could be a lot more rewarding at the end. I mean, you think back to moments in your life, and you think about, oh, I remember seeing this film and I felt like this walking out of the theater. Um, it's hard for a short to do it, but there are
Mhm.
instances where few of these short films have done that, and the key is like, how do you find those? And hopefully, Ranjan's short film channel is one way to curate and find some of those gems.
Right. I'm sure. I'm sure. I hope that turns out to be true. And all the best for tomorrow. I'm personally very excited to watch your short film and then, of course, eventually your feature film. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me for this conversation. And yeah, all the best.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.